Good morning, fellow CC parents. I know mornings can be a little crazy, especially for us homeschooling folks. And with the Math Map curriculum,
Yeah, the one for the 7th graders.
it can feel like a bit of a bump, right?
Yeah.
Triangles, circles, even trigonometry.
Definitely a step up in complexity.
So, to help us all out, we're diving into some materials created by a fellow CC parent. They've thought of everything,
All designed to not only help us teach the material,
but to get our kids excited about geometry, right?
exactly, help them see the beauty in it all.
Okay, so the first thing that struck me, in the Triangles and Circles source, they start with a Plato quote.
Oh yeah, the one about geometry leading the soul towards truth.
I mean, heady stuff for 7th grade, don't you think?
It is, but they connect it so beautifully to a Christian worldview.
Showing how geometry reflects God's design and creation.
They give concrete examples.
Oh, like what?
Like the symbolism of circles representing unity, think wedding rings,
Or the church itself.
and triangles representing the Trinity.
So these shapes, they're not just lines on a page, they suddenly have this deeper meaning. Then there's the practical side of things, like the unit circle.
Yeah, I'll admit, it's been a while since I've thought about that.
Me too. But it's foundational to trigonometry.
It is, and it can seem abstract at first.
It really can.
But the beauty of the unit circle is that it's a visual tool.
Okay, so instead of just memorizing formulas, they can actually see what's going on.
Right. Students can see how sine, cosine, and tangent, all those ratios,
They relate to actual lengths on the circle.
which makes so much more sense than just blindly plugging numbers into a formula.
So less rote memorization, more understanding the why behind it all, which is what we want as teachers.
And to really drive that home, the source material provides a bunch of real-world applications.
Like what kind of applications?
Well, there's the classic example of using shadows to calculate the height of a tree, or using trig ratios to design a safe playground slide.
So it's not just some theoretical concept they're learning.
And that's what this deep dive's all about, right? Helping you, the parent, bring these applications to life.
I feel like I need all the help I can get, especially with something like the unit circle.
Well, let's dive into that next. It's not as scary as it sounds.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's do it.
So the unit circle, let's break it down a little. Remember, it's just a circle
Right, sir.
with a radius of 1.
Okay, a radius of 1. So why is that important?
That's key because it lets us visualize trigonometric ratios as length.
Okay, so instead of just abstract formulas,
You have something you can actually see and measure.
I'm looking at the source material here, and they do a really good job of connecting the unit circle to right triangles.
So picture this. You've got a right triangle nestled right inside the unit circle, with its hypotenuse as the radius.
Okay, we can see it.
Now, the point where that triangle touches the circle, that point's x-coordinate is actually the cosine of the angle.
It's so much easier to grasp when you can see it laid out like that,
And it helps you understand how sine and cosine change.
as you move the triangle around the circle.
Exactly. You're changing the angle as you go.
Makes sense. And what about tangent? Where does that fit in?
Tangent is represented by the slope of a line from the origin to that point on the circle.
So it also becomes something you can visualize. I'm looking at the Triangles and Circles charts.pdf that comes.
It's a great visual aid.
I love how they color code the special triangles. Seeing them right there inside the unit circle really helps connect the dots.
It's not just about memorizing the ratios.
It's about understanding the why behind them. The charts also make it super clear which quadrant means sine is positive or negative and so on. That was always confusing for me back in school.
The unit circle really shines in that regard. It takes those rules and makes them something you can see, not just remember.
Okay, so we've got the basics down, but trigonometry goes beyond just cosine and tangent.
Oh, absolutely. We can't forget about the trigonometric identities.
I always felt like those were some secret math language I just couldn't crack.
Think of them as shortcuts. They're equations that are always true, no matter what the angle is.
Okay, so like little mathematical truths we can rely on.
And the triangles and circles materials do a really good job of breaking down the Pythagorean identities, the sum and difference formulas, all these tools that help us manipulate these concepts.
So it's like a toolkit for more advanced trigonometry.
That's a great way to put it.
So we've got the philosophical grounding, the unit circle, and even a glimpse into those tricky identities. But how do we actually teach all of this to our 7th graders? It's not like I'm suddenly a math professor.
Well, that's where the 4-day lesson plan really comes in handy. And don't worry, it starts off pretty gently. Day 1 is all about a shape hunt.
A shape hunt. Sounds fine. And very age appropriate.
It's all about getting them to think about circles and triangles in their own world.
Okay, so they're starting to notice those shapes all around them.
Why do buildings have certain shapes? Why are things designed the way they are? It sparks their curiosity.
And then the lesson plan takes it a step further,
It guides you through actually having them draw those shapes.
using a compass and a ruler.
Yeah, it might seem basic, but there's something really satisfying about creating a perfect circle or triangle.
I agree. There's a real sense of accomplishment there.
And it ties back to that idea of order and beauty in geometry. It's hands-on experience with those concepts before they dive into the more abstract stuff.
So we've got them thinking, we've got them drawing. What's next?
Day 2 is all about laying the groundwork for trigonometry, specifically with right triangles.
Okay, so we're getting into the nitty-gritty now.
And they keep it hands-on. It's all about sneaking in the math while they're having fun.
Love it. And then, of course, there's the classic activity of measuring the height of a tree using its shadow. I remember doing that in school. It felt like magic.
It is a bit like magic, but it's also demonstrating the power of proportions.
Which is essential to understanding trigonometry.
Right. They're using ratios without even realizing it yet.
Which leads us perfectly into day 3, where they finally meet sine, cosine, and tangent.
They also encourage creating a visual chart, really driving those connections home.
It's all about making sure they understand what those ratios really represent.
And then they take it a step further. They have students apply those ratios to real-world situations.
Like calculating the angle of a slide or a ramp.
Suddenly, trigonometry isn't just about triangles on a page.
It's about playground design.
And then there's the chronometer activity.
What's that?
Students build their own tool to measure angles.
Oh, wow. So it's like a mini engineering project.
They're learning, building, and applying all at the same time.
This lesson plan is amazing.
Okay.
I'm ready for the grand finale. How do they introduce the unit circle on day 4?
They ease into it by first having students create a physical unit circle.
Using what?
Cardboard and string, actually.
Oh, wow. So they're getting tactile with it before diving into the abstract math.
And to really bring it to life, they have the students walk around a circle that they've drawn on the ground.
So they're physically experiencing those coordinates as they move around the circle.
And of course, we can't forget about the pizza slice math activity. They take a paper circle and divide it up like a pizza, label the angles and coordinates, and then they create a game out of finding positions on the circle.
So it's fun, engaging, and delicious. This lesson plan is packed with such creative ideas. What do you think is the biggest strength of this approach?
For me, it's the balance. You've got the philosophical foundations, you connect that to real-world applications, and then you dive into the math tools.
And it's all hands-on and engaging.
It really is. It's a holistic approach that caters to different learning styles.
I completely agree. It does seem like a lot to cover in 4 days, though.
They do offer some guidance on pacing and adapting the material.
Oh, okay.
They include suggestions for assessment ideas and even tips for differentiating instruction.
That's a relief. It sounds like we have everything we need to confidently teach this to our 7th graders.
You do. And remember, the goal isn't just to get them to memorize formulas or pass a test.
It's about helping them see the bigger picture
It's about helping them see the beauty and order in God's creation.
and equip them with the tools to approach problem solving. What are some key takeaways our listeners can walk away with?
Well, first and foremost, don't be intimidated by this new curriculum. Remember, the unit circle is a friend, not a foe.
It's a visual tool that can make trigonometry so much easier to understand.
And don't underestimate the power of hands-on learning and real-world applications.
Those are key.
Right. Show your kids how trigonometry is used in everyday life.
Absolutely. Now, here's a final thought-provoking question for our listeners. How might understanding these principles help your 7th grader approach challenges in other areas of life? If they can figure out the height of a tree using shadows and some trigonometry, imagine what else they can do.
That's a great question to ponder. The Triangles and Circles materials provide everything you need to confidently approach these topics.
You got this.
And remember to have fun with it. Math can be enjoyable, I promise.
That's a wrap on this deep dive. We hope you feel empowered and excited to embark on this mathematical adventure.
Happy teaching, everyone.